All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number 7. That is right, week number 7. Week number 7 of your 9489 class, which is your cultural heritage class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. Jace K. Austin, and what we are going to do this week is we are going to have a quick state of the course update. And after we do our state of the course update, we are going to talk just a little bit about something that is cultural heritage, and we will hopefully enjoy the topic that we talk about, and hopefully it will be something that is relevant to your life and an enhancement to the class. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into this state of the course update. Pause. All right, so first things first, I did want to just mention very briefly that yes, there are still a few of you who have not turned in your first papers due to the weather sort of situations that we've had going on. And now, of course, there is another blizzard that is predicted to strike the state of Missouri, so we just cannot catch a break now, can we? But that is okay, so if you need another extension due to this other incoming blizzard, again, just let me know. I really do want you all to visit a cultural heritage site that you actually do want to visit. So if it's going to take us a while to do that because of the weather, then by all means, let's let the God or whoever controls the weather, let's let them do their work, and then we will respond accordingly. But for right now, yes, we are going to allow you all a little bit more time if weather is the thing that is keeping you from visiting your cultural heritage site. I do realize that I am a few weeks behind as far as grading the discussion boards. I told you all that that would happen. I did grade your tangible cultural heritage discussion boards yesterday, and I will try to get around to the intangible cultural heritage discussion boards and your music documentary reviews. I'll try to get around to those hopefully this weekend. Basically, if you care about why it's taking me so long, I have an 8-week business course that I'm going to be teaching starting in 2 weeks, and that'll be my 3rd course for the semester. And prepping that course has actually been a monster on top of a book chapter that I am working on as well that has been a monster. So there are monsters all around. I got monsters, you got monsters, we all have monsters, but the important thing is that we don't let our monsters defeat us, and as long as we fight back against our monsters, we will be victorious. Yes. Okay, so yes, I am well aware that I am behind on grading. I am thinking more than likely some of your other professors are probably behind on grading too, because the end of February is when things really start to pick up and we end up having more work than we did toward the beginning of the semester. That's just how it is. I do have admissions and e-portfolios that I have to work on as well. But I am here and dialed in for you all, and I am excited to see what you guys are going to write about this week's topic. This week's topic being indigenous peoples' concerns with cultural heritage, so ownership of cultural heritage and that sort of thing. And when I say indigenous people, I'm not specifically talking about Native Americans or American Indians or the people who existed here prior to the European settlement of North America. I am talking about anybody who's indigenous to an area prior to European colonization, as I would say. So indigenous peoples would also be not just the people who are indigenous to the Americas, but also Australian Aboriginal people, also the people who are African people who lived in Africa and a lot of times lived in tribes prior to colonization and establishment of African nations through colonization. And then also people in Asia. A lot of times the Asian continent was colonized too, as you all know. So India, for instance, was colonized by the British. France colonized Vietnam, those sorts of things. Russia had their hand in a few things. So all of that to say that we are talking about people all over the globe who existed in an area, again, prior to European colonization. That's what I mean when I say indigenous peoples and their concerns with cultural heritage. And so you have some readings here that kind of reinforce the topics that we're going to be talking about and the concepts that we're going to grapple with in the discussion board area. And then we are really going to focus in on the Marvel Black Panther movie, because there are some interesting things that come out of that. And that is kind of what your discussion board prompt for this week is centered on. Another thing that I am going to mention in the state of the course update, and I'm also going to put this in the announcement, is that I actually am going to extend now to the end of March, not the end of April, the end of March. I am going to extend until the end of March your ability to reach out to me and propose a heritage topic or a heritage project if you want to do some form of heritage project as opposed to doing the final paper. I did have a few of you reach out to me over the weekend, and that was nice, and it did encourage me to just give a little extra time there. Okay, so that is what is coming down the pipeline. We do have a sync session next week, I believe, but let me double check so that I'm not telling you anything wrong. Yes, so next Wednesday, this will be uploaded early on Wednesday morning, Wednesday the 5th, my father's birthday. This will be uploaded, but a week from today, which will be March the 5th, a week from today, you are going to have a sync session. We are going to be speaking with Stuart Hines, who is the founder of LAMA, which is the Gay and Lesbian Archive of Mid-America, and he is going to do a presentation on that archive and some of the things that you would find there and some of the cultural heritage relevancy of that archive and that collection. So no check-in video next week, again, because we'll have that sync session, but I am excited to see you all next week. It's been a while since I've seen you all in real time. I miss you all. I can't wait to see you all again. So I'm really pumped about our sync session next week, and I'm really excited and encouraged to see you all again. And outside of that, I don't know that there are any major assignments coming up, but let me see on this to-do list. Let me just make sure that I am not misleading you. So, actually, I'm going to pause because I need to update it. So yes, outside of attending the sync session and then also the outside of attending the sync session and then also the discussion board prompts, you really don't have anything out of the ordinary, out of the routine as far as assignments until March the 31st. Your next assignment is going to be due March the 31st, and that's going to be your mini interview with a cultural heritage worker. Yes, I should actually talk about that right now, because that way you all will have almost the entire month of March, if you haven't started yet, to try to find somebody and try to get this done. This does not need to be complicated, because basically what's happening with this assignment is it can be as simple as you emailing these questions to a cultural heritage worker and having them email you back and then posting the question and answer. You can make it that simple if you want, or if you want to take it in a different direction, by all means do that. But the reason this is going to be a discussion board post prompt is because this is basically vocational guidance. So what I'm trying to do is get you all to see the various opportunities that can exist within the cultural heritage field. And from there, so like if you're thinking, well, I want to do cultural heritage, but what do I want to do? And you might not be thinking about things like being somebody who runs a museum, or being somebody who's an event planner and does cultural heritage events, or somebody who, somebody who runs a zoo or something like that. Zoos are, I don't consider zoos to be cultural heritage, but the cultural heritage scholar paradigm is for zoos to be considered cultural heritage. I'm an outlier in this area, but all of that to say, if I can get you all to just again, interview these cultural heritage workers and then post your Q's and A's or wherever you decide to take it, if you decide not to do a Q&A, but to post something in the discussion boards after they are all turned in on March the 31st. Then what I'm going to have you all do is go back to that discussion board prompt and actually, I'm going to have you all review your classmates' work, and that will be your vocational guidance. It should open some doors. It should have you all saying, I hadn't thought about that as a potential possibility of something that I could do in the line of cultural heritage work. My daughter is going to say hi because she came in here. Say hi to the people.
Hi.
All right. Now I'm going to pause this and you're going to go. All right. Yeah. So if you have any ideas for, cultural heritage projects, by all means, you still have some time to send those to me. Again, I will allow for ideas up through the end of March now. And then also, yes, you are, when it comes to this week's discussion board prompt, it can be kind of controversial and everything, but we are, that discussion board prompt is something that is really essential to our focus on cultural heritage, and it can tie into forgotten heritage, which is going to be our last module in the class, because a lot of the forgotten heritage is basically the cultural heritage that was originally assumed by somebody else, taken in by somebody else, and then it was, I guess, replaced. So one of my favorite song lyrics is by a rapper named Immortal Technique, and the song lyric is, I used to be a Christian and a political pawn. The Bible is right and all your native culture is wrong. And the thing about that is actually a cultural heritage statement in and of itself, because a lot of our lost and forgotten heritage is stuff that was lost because it was seen as anti-Islamic or anti-Christian. Those are the major colonizing religions within the world. And so the things that were seen as against the word of the Bible or the word of the Quran, those things were basically taught out of people. So conquered people, people who were colonized and that sort of thing, a lot of times when they were made to assume the religion of the colonizers, they also lost a lot of their native culture, because the native culture was seen as demonic or satanic or against the word of God and that sort of thing. Okay. Now, as far as that, let me go back here, hold on, because that little impromptu visit got me a little sidetracked. So yes, again, when it comes to your mini interview with a cultural heritage worker, and I apologize that the video is now a little disjointed, but I'm sure you all sped it up, and so you can make sense of it still in a decent amount of time. But and I would prefer a Q&A with like the administrator or the supervisor or somebody who's a major decision maker. But also, if you talk to somebody who is rank and file, that is perfectly fine. I don't want this to be a coworker of yours. I want you to branch out. Okay, branch out. Don't just talk to the people you're familiar with. That's a problem that we have in LIS. We are too incestuous, in my opinion, and we just go around and we go to conferences and we talk to the same people over and over again. And then when we have to collaborate, we collaborate with the same people over and over again and all these things. And it really makes for like stale research and just a staleness of this profession. This profession is very, very stale. And by the way, the workers can be, again, from a variety of places: museums, libraries, archives, plantation sites, non-chain restaurants, local non-chain businesses, zoos, ballparks, concert venues, those who plan festivals and cultural events, all the things of that nature. Those are people who would qualify, and there are 5 questions that you would ask them. But please also let them know that we're not looking for just yes or no answers. Have them flesh it out and give us something of substance. Okay. So that's how that is going to work. All right. Let's get into this article. I actually want to talk about an article, and I'm going to link the article in the announcement. Give me one moment. All right, so here is an article that came out about a week ago, and it's something that just kind of hit me as a cultural heritage person, somebody who basically has a doctorate degree in cultural heritage and that sort of thing. This was something that really, really struck me right here, because I do worry, and I have to be careful. We are, first of all, I'm just going to come out and say it. Higher education has no spine at all at this point. There used to be a time where scholars and professors and the people who worked in higher ed, such as myself, there was a time when we were looked at, and I'm not talking that long ago, because I'm 41 years old, so I'm not that old. I mean, I'm not young, but I'm not 1 foot in the grave. I would say I've only got a few toes in the grave at this point, right? So, but even when I was in undergrad, which was only 20 years ago, I graduated from undergrad in 2005. So that was a long time ago for a lot of you, but again, it wasn't, you'll see as you get older how quickly 20 years can go. But what I'll say to that is 20 years ago in the grand scheme of things really wasn't that long ago. And when I graduated from college 20 years ago, we were still in a climate in this country where higher ed provided checks and balances for the government, and higher ed would critique the actions of the government. Some of George W. Bush, he was the president throughout my entire undergrad experience. And George W. Bush, his biggest critics were really people in higher ed, people who were professors, people like me. in the war on terror and the Patriot Act and all of these things that I remember from my undergraduate experience, because I started undergrad in 2001. So I went to college in August of 2001, and then September 11th happened like just a couple of weeks after I left home. It was really devastating for somebody who had just gotten out on their own. But what I'll say is, like, yes, the Bush administration was watched closely and checked by higher education, and they understood that role. And the Bush administration actually didn't do, even in spite of the Patriot Act, the Bush administration did not do a whole lot to persecute professors or to try to retaliate against professors who were critical of the Bush administration. And the same can actually be said of the Obama administration. Now, there were a lot of people in higher ed who were sympathetic to Obama, but even those who were not, if you wanted to criticize Obama, the Obama administration wasn't coming after you. Higher ed has lost its spine. When it comes to the Trump administration, higher ed has lost its spine. I'll just be quite honest and say even like higher ups have come down and had it trickle down to me and all the other professors at this university talking about, well, be careful what you say about MAGA, be careful what you say about this and that, because people are going to get you. They're going to be looking for you. We're going to have state representatives who are going to be trying to look at your emails and trying to look at your syllabi and things like that. And there was a time just 20 years ago where we would be like, so what? But now everybody is kowtowing and everybody is afraid. And with everybody being afraid, there are certain things that need to be said that are not going to be said because everybody's so fearful nowadays. But I'm going to say some things, okay? So when it comes to this administration, and by all means, I was not, I can admit in hindsight that I did vote for Kamala Harris, but I wasn't a big fan I'm never a big fan of the presidential candidates, just to be honest with you. I was not a big fan of Biden or, anybody. My first election that I could vote for was 2004. That was when I was finally old enough. And, I haven't really been a big fan of any politician that I voted for on a national level, but I did decide I'm going to take a stand and vote for somebody because I think somebody is a better choice than somebody else. So I have always still participated in the process when I could. The reason I say that is to say that it doesn't matter to me whether or not you voted for Trump or not. We're not going to get into you're good or bad if you voted for Trump, you're good or bad if you voted for Jill Stein or Kamala Harris or whatever. Those are tired conversations. You can have those conversations with your friends. I'm not worried about those conversations, but what I am worried about are the real world effects that result from our elections, right? And so this right here, Trump's funding freeze leaves Ukrainian cultural heritage in limbo. Again, this is from a few days ago at the end of February. And what you will see as you scroll down here, I'm just going to read some of this right here. In the 3 years since Russia invaded Ukraine, near daily heavy drone strikes and heavy missile bombardments have killed thousands of civilians and displaced many more. In addition to the loss of life and large-scale damage to civilian infrastructure, Russia has targeted many vulnerable Ukrainian cultural and natural heritage sites. And we actually do have a module on this, by the way. We do have a module on why cultural heritage sites get attacked. So this is something that we're going to revisit. But what I want to speak about right now is this is important right here. Now Donald Trump's presidency poses new challenges for Ukraine, suggesting a pivot away from preservation efforts supported by the Biden administration, like the State Department's Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Response Initiative, okay? So the Biden administration actually did have an initiative in place to help protect the cultural heritage that exists in Ukraine. And the Trump administration, and we actually saw this in the first Trump administration. The first Trump administration actually was against the safeguards that we traditionally have afforded cultural heritage. So the United Nations, the UN, UNESCO, a bunch of these entities that are worldwide, they have been involved in saying, even in wartime, you do not attack cultural heritage. Even in wartime, You leave cultural heritage alone. You respect cultural heritage, because these are the things, again, cultural heritage, inheritance. That's the word. And we are talking about things that are, with cultural heritage, we're talking about the things that are inherited from, in our generation, from all the generations before us. And they go on and on and on. And they keep cultures alive. They give identities to cultures. And they are the things that allow us to have respect for what cultures have produced and experienced. And they are the things that allow us to actually learn from people. So there is so much knowledge that we don't have today. We're kind of arrogant in our ways in these last days and times, because we see ourselves as, especially with the internet and things like that, we see ourselves as very knowledgeable people in these days and times, right? But there's actually a lot of good ancient knowledge that we will never know that could have been beneficial for us, but that knowledge has been erased because of, a lot of times when you lose cultural heritage, a lot of times you lose it to two things: either war or capitalism / profitability, right? And so when it comes to war, yes, one thing that armies do, one thing that militaries do to demoralize the people that they are fighting, is they attack their cultural heritage. And so in recent times, we've decided, just like most civilized nations have decided, okay, we're not going to attack civilians. We're going to fight the war between the soldiers. You know, we're not going to have Pearl Harbor where we're bombing whole entire cities and killing children and that sort of thing. For similar reasons, countries have also decided, hey, we're not going to go after cultural heritage. We're not going to attack your monuments. We're not going to attack your museums. We're not going to attack your churches and those sorts of things. And the reason why they do that is because they are, again, trying to preserve the knowledge and the identities of these people. But it can be very demoralizing when these things are destroyed. And even in his first term, Trump suggested that he was not worried about cultural heritage. You know, if he felt that if there was a need to attack a country, you would attack that country. And cultural heritage, that's technically not loss of life. So he was not concerned about whether or not cultural heritage was damaged during military operations. So when we look at that, at least 476 landmarks in Ukraine have sustained damage since February 2022. Please do not think that's by accident. Please do not think that that's what, I forgot the term, but you know, the collateral damage. Please don't think that this is, collateral damage or something that happened because of bad aim or the landmarks were just in the way or something like that. No, this is purposeful. This is to rob the Ukrainian people of their identity, to steal some of their identity from them, and to demoralize them. And a demoralized people are people that are easier to conquer. A demoralized people are people that are easier to kind of assimilate into what you are doing. So, if you are an aggressor. So at least 476 landmarks have been damaged since February 2022, including archaeological sites, religious sites, buildings of historic or artistic significance, as well as libraries. You see it right there. Libraries, archives, museums, monuments. And there is a list that was published by UNESCO. Okay. Again, this stuff is deliberate. And what worries me, don't get me wrong, I don't blame, even with the Trump administration, I'm not going to share too many of my views on the Trump administration, because what I'm sharing right now, I'm still having to play the coward role too. You know, I'm not going to do anything that puts my job in danger because, hey, there's somebody that's dependent on me having this job. But what I am going to say is the moral high ground for the Trump administration really would be to continue with the Biden administration's efforts to have some sort of initiative to Ukrainian cultural heritage, to have something in place, so that we're not just leaving Ukrainian cultural heritage at the mercy of Moscow, right? And yeah, that would be the moral high ground, I would say, for the Trump administration to continue that. But we see that the Trump administration is less concerned about that. I do think that the Trump administration is more concerned about, I really think I think there's something really big with the mineral deal that the Trump administration is pursuing right now. And in fact, because I haven't been able to read the news today, they might have actually even gotten a deal done. I just know that the last time I read the news, the deal hadn't been done yet. But I think what the Trump administration, well, I'll say this, the United States is probably likely to gain financially from this minerals deal. And so I don't know. I don't know if what we're getting caught up in is, reducing the federal workforce and trying to make sure that we save money that way, and then also generate money and generate revenues through the mineral deal. But what I'm going to say is I am very worried about what this means, because I think that this can go even beyond what's happening in Ukraine. I think that there is a chance that the federal funding freezes are going to cost us people who are cultural heritage workers at the federal level. And between what's happening here and then some other things that we saw from the Trump administration in the first term, there is reason to believe, and it's not unreasonable to believe, that the Trump administration just does not care that much about cultural heritage. And there are a lot of federal dollars that go into cultural heritage, either through, funding the staffing of some of these things that we have, such as the presidential libraries. And some of the presidential libraries actually have had to lay people off, due to, funding cuts and that sort of thing, whatever Trump and Elon Musk are doing. But also, there are entities at the federal government level, including IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, that do grants, that give grant money to preservation. There is so much grant money out there that is used for preservation. And if the Trump administration does not care about cultural heritage, and again, there is reason to suspect that they do not care that much, especially, and I'm just going to put it out there, this could be risky, but I'm going to put it out there, especially cultural heritage related to non-white populations. If they don't care that much about it, if they try to say that those things are divisive, like for instance, if there is a federally funded African American museum, and if they decide, oh, well, that's woke and that is divisive to have a museum celebrating this culture, then, that could be something that ends up on the chopping block. And yeah, there will be those who are happy because a little bit of money is saved. But at the individual level, you won't feel that, because you're shutting down the African American Museum, shutting down all of the presidential libraries. That is going to have very little effect on how much income tax you pay. Okay. And I do think that federal funding of these things does more good than harm. And I think that if we have a administration that is about to deprioritize those things because they see those as pork and as wasteful spending and things like that, we're going to lose a lot of identity in the process. So I say that to say, first of all, put this on your radar. And then also, as we continue on learning in this course, I do want you all to be conscious of what changes are happening at the federal level, how federal spending cuts and layoffs are affecting cultural heritage in Washington, D.C. and everywhere else. And also how we are respecting cultural heritage in the nations that are our allies, or even if they're not our allies. If we are involved in any conflict that is going on in any nation around the world, how are we treating the cultural heritage these next 4 years? That is something that we need to pay attention to. And quite frankly, there may even need to be underground preservation efforts undertaken. And some of you may be involved in those sorts of things if those things start to spring up. Okay. So have that on your radar, be thinking about it, and be mindful of it. That is what I want to leave you all with today. I am Dr. Jace, and we have to make sure that cultural heritage doesn't vanish without a trace. Jace, Trace made my rhyme. Now I can go to sleep happy. You all have a blessed and wonderful week. Thank you.